All right, welcome back to the shop. So I've got a video today on a CAT 735. Serial number prefix is AWR. It's a transmission out of it. So this is an 8-speed transmission. When these things came out early on, they were really, really bad. You'd be lucky to get 1,200 hours, maybe 2,000 hours out of them. The main issue in these was the lockup clutch. The lockup clutch is just pathetic. It's this narrow band clutch, just one disc, about 14 inches in diameter, and that thing would, every time this thing shifts, that lockup clutch locks and unlocks. You've got a 70,000 pound truck that's hauling 35 tons, about 70,000 pounds of material. So you've got 140,000 pounds, and it's all on one disc. In fact, I'll pull out a disc out of here just to show you guys what that lockup clutch is. But no matter what this thing is doing, it depends on that lockup clutch. When you first take off, it's in torque converter mode, and once it stabilizes and the input and output speeds are matched to what it expects, it'll lock up. And then when it goes to shift, it unlocks, it shifts, then it locks back up. It does that through all 8 speeds. And this thing is upshifting and downshifting all day long. So they did come out with a better clutch and kind of cured that problem. It's still not the greatest, but we can get like 4,000 to 6,000 hours out of it now, depending on your operating conditions. If you're doing a lot of steep climbing, you're going to lose life out of it, obviously. And there's some other updates that have been done in this thing over the years. So it's a decent transmission now. It's still not the best. See, I've got that 740 transmission right there. That thing is a bulletproof. It's not bulletproof, but it's 10 times the transmission as these 735 transmissions. So anyways, in this video, I haven't done one on these yet. I've rebuilt a million of these stupid things. In fact, I've got, right up in here, I've got this seal protector. There's a seal for the torque converter. When you lower the plate down, the seal plate over the torque converter, this goes over the gear in there so that you don't cut the seal on the gear. And they give you one of these with every seal. When they first came out, you had to buy one. Actually, they had to steal one, and you had to buy it. And but they started putting these in the box with the seal. And I've got a collection of them up here. You can't really tell how many are up here. I should dig them down just to show you guys. But I've got over 30 of them sitting there. So I've done over 30 of these 735 transmissions. The guy that bought it, he bought it at an auction. The truck only has 8,000 hours on it. So I don't know what's going on in here yet. Customer said that that they're getting steel in the filter. So obviously something's going on. It's not acting like it's the lockup clutch. So there must be something going on in one of the clutch packs, one of the planetaries. So we're going to get this thing apart. I'll do a video on taking it apart, and then I'll do another video of putting it back together. So anyways, let's get to it. All right, so it's the next day. I got tied up yesterday and wasn't able to start tearing this transmission apart. So I'm going to start today. So what I'm going to do is, up there I've got those big rubber tubs. I'm going to get that bigger rubber tub, put it down over here, and I'm going to pick this transmission up. And I have to lift it up kind of this way, swing it upward, and set it down on the flywheel here. Flywheel is part of the torque converter. It's actually the major part of the torque converter, believe it or not. So if you destroy that clutch inside there and you run it too long, it destroys this flywheel too, which it's not very expensive, surprisingly, for the size of it. I think it's like $800 or $900 or something like that. It's not that much. So anyways, we'll get this set up so it's standing up, and that way we can remove the bolts here and pull this main section of the transmission off of the torque converter. There is one clutch pack that's mounted to this unit, but that's not a big deal. That's actually pack number 1. We get this section off, and then we can start disassembling this and see what we have in there, and we'll get it all laid out. And then we'll take apart clutch number 1. We'll see how that looks, and then we'll get in here and take the torque converter apart and see if we can find out what failed in this thing. Okay, so I got it hanging here from the crane. It's kind of funny. It reminds me of like on Jaws when they're hanging that shark from the hoist, and they bring it into port. And this big old stupid thing hanging here. So before I set it down in the tub, I pulled the hub off the center here, off the flywheel. I pulled 2 of the bolts here. I thought I could pull all 3, but the flywheel started to move, and I don't know if it's going to slide off. So I left one of those, and then I pulled off a bunch of the valves and stuff that I need to pull off to get this apart. Because the tub's going to be in the way, because this tub I have is so deep. So I pulled the pressure relief valve off so I can get to these bolts. I pulled the pressure relief valve for the filter off, just so I can get it out of the way. I pulled all the bolts out of this plate because it's going to come off. There's some bolts that come up from the bottom here. I pulled those out. I pulled the filter out, and then I had to pull the manifold for the cooler, for the trans oil cooler off, and pull these bolts that come up from the bottom. So now when I set it down, I'm going to be able to just pull all these bolts around the top, and I'll be able to pull the transmission off right away without screwing around with the tub being in my way. And I'm kind of limited on tools a little bit because Alex went out to the field with the truck. So I'm going to be doing some stuff without specialty tools that I have. I should have grabbed them, but I didn't. And I've got this stupid extra long chain I can't shorten because it's stuck in there. So it's kind of hindering me a little bit. So if I look stupid doing this, well, I guess I am. Anyways, let's keep going on this thing. All right, so I'm working on getting these bolts out of here. This stuff is just caked on here. He said he was going to steam clean it. I don't think he did, and I kind of had it in my mind that he was going to do it, so I didn't do it. But a lot of times this stuff is just so baked on here. You just got to use a descaler to get it all cleaned off. And I don't have my descaler; it's in the service truck, so I'm just going to fight it. I've got to clean this thing thoroughly because of all the metal intrusion inside. So I'm going to clean all these things up separately, anyways. But it's just a pain getting it apart with this caked on crap. But that's these 735 transmissions. They always get this stuff just baked on here. So anyways, I gotta pull this tube off, and then right here, this is the oil supply tube. It comes from the pump. The pump's inside the torque converter housing, and this is the supply tube for the pump. It sends oil up into the system. So I just got to get it off to get it out of my way because it's hiding a few bolts here. And then I'll be able to, yeah, this thing's fighting me. And then I'll be able to get this transmission lifted off here. So we're just minutes away. All right, so I've got all the bolts off that hold it together. Probably noticed I switched tubs. I went to the smaller one. It's the first time I tried using that big tub with it, and it just didn't fit in there good. The 740 torque fits in there a lot better, but this one didn't. So I just put it in the smaller one to catch as much oil as I can. This thing will leak oil forever. So now I just need to knock this plate off. I'll show you what's inside there. There's a pickup screen for the transmission pump, and we just need to get that off if I can get it off. It's got a gasket on there glued on. Oh, look at all that. There's a good indicator what's wrong. Look at all that clutch material. And there's flake steel too. It's gonna get interesting. There's a big pile of that. Look at that pile of material in there. So let's get this out of the way. Set it down here right next to its bolts. I like to just set everything kind of in its own grouping. And I've done so many of these, I know where all the parts go, so I don't have to worry about figuring out what went where. So here's the pickup screen, and there's a bolt right here. It takes a 16 millimeter or a 5/8 for us American folks. All right, we'll get that bolt out. Probably gonna need to get a bar to pop this out. We'll see if I can come get it out with the camera on here. If not, I'll have to get a bar and pop it out. I'll put the camera down. There we go. So it's got that O-ring on there that holds it in. And there's our first peak right here. This unit here is clutch number 1. It's clutch number 2. Or actually, this is clutch number 1, I'm sorry. And then number 2 and all the way up to, I think, 7. I forget how many, 6 or 7. 6 clutches that are involved. So let me go ahead and get the crane going again, and we'll lift this thing off. Okay, so there's a short spline in here. So depending on how evenly I have these chains, that's going to dictate how easy it comes off. You can pick up on it, probably going to have to kind of jerk on it, jiggle it back and forth, and get it to kind of pop and release, and then it'll slide off pretty easy. So let's see what we got here. Look at that, straight away. Oh, I gotta get this. There, get that wire for the temp sender, oil temp sender off. Lift this off, swing it out of the way. We'll just lower this down here, and that's where we're going to take that part, that section of transmission apart, sitting right there. So this is clutch pack number 1 right here. Believe it or not, this tiny little unit. I think it's only engaged in like 6th, 7th, and 8th gear or something like that. I'd have to look it up. If you have a 730, they have a retarder, and the retarder will be mounted in here as well. But these have a Jake brake that don't have a retarder, so it's clutch pack 1, and then all the other ones are in that other housing. So one issue with these things, fortunately these transmissions don't last long enough, but you have all these O-rings right here. That one's stuck on there. And if the transmission does last long enough, you can get these things to start leaking. If you order these out of the book or off SysWeb, you're going to get the old style ones and they will harden up sooner. But if you look, there's a service magazine article on them, and it'll give you the numbers of the new seals that can handle the way higher temperatures. Last a lot longer. They're a lot more expensive, but I mean, the work to do this is, it's well worth it. So now to start getting this planetary unit apart, it's got all these bolts right here. They're metric bolts, but a 15/16 will fit on there. So we'll pull all these out. I'm gonna have to pull these guards off of the speed sensors off, and then I can pull this top unit off. I don't have to pull the yoke off to do that. That comes off separately when I want to disassemble this rear set. And so when I lift this off, I'm going to see pack number 6 is going to be the first one I'm going to see, and it's going to be sitting right underneath here. This is going to lift off, and all those clutches and discs, they might lift off with it a little bit, but they're going to be settling back down on the hub there. And then we can just start lifting these apart. Now there is one thing. This transmission does not have an update. So there's a reaction plate right here, and I could tell it doesn't have the update because it matches here where this is squared off. When you have the updated one, it doesn't have that. It's a completely round ring, and you'll have a gap here. I don't know why we never updated this. This transmission must have been in the machine for a long time. I remember when we took it out and repaired the housing on it, but I don't know why this wouldn't be updated. So that's going to be something that we're going to update. I'll show you more on that when I get it apart. And then once I get to a certain level here, there's a couple of hidden Allen bolts in here. And the original service manual information on disassembling these did not show that. And the first time we had one apart, we're going crazy trying to get it apart. And you could see marks on other transmissions I've done where people have tried to, you can see where chisel marks where people try to get it apart because oil covers those Allen bolts that are securing it down. They did a revision in the service manual that shows those bolts. But if you're using a paperback, you're not going to see that. So that's something to look out for. It's only going to be in the later edition, the updated edition of the service manual for the disassembly and assembly. All right, so I pulled out most of these bolts. There are 2 of them that take an 18mm. I forgot about that when I was talking about the socket size, but I've got them all out. But if you notice how easy this pulls out, so there was an update as well to add these little snubber things that go inside one of the housings here that would keep this long bolt from chattering or vibrating. Maybe they had one break at some point or something. I've never had an issue. Some of my trucks have them. Some of the transmissions I've done had them, and some haven't had them. I've never had a problem with them. So that is another update that you can do to these. I've never bothered to do it though. You can see it's trying to take that reaction plate with it. I'm going to need to get a screwdriver to stick in there and separate those two. So this reaction plate, what it is, it's a plate that discs right on both sides. And so instead of having being part of a manifold, like separate manifolds or something, it's where those two, this clutch pack and this clutch pack both ride on this disc here. It gets so much stress on it that it'll break that plate. We pulled them apart and found that plate cracked up pretty bad before. So here's the planetary for clutch pack 6. I'm going to go ahead and set this on the ground. There's the piston that drives it. There's also a retaining ring inside here. And there was an upgrade on that too, where that ring would pop out. And so you'd have to take this piston down and have it machined. And you can find a service magazine article on it that shows how to machine it. So I've taken them all down in the past as we've done them and had it machined out so that it'll hold it. Early on, we would lose transmissions over this ring popping out. And then this piston would blow out if it had to travel too far. So here's clutch pack, all the clutches on number 6. They all look I mean, just from what I see right now, they look okay. I don't think the problem's going to be there. So I'm going to set this down, and then I'm going to stack this out, you know, and stack this, and we'll just keep working our way down. All right, so I pulled out all the discs and plates out of pack 6. They look pretty good. I'll still have to mic them and check the plates to make sure they're flat. Pulled some of the dowels and springs just to get them out of the way. I closed that door so we can have better light on the cameras. So that stupid light from outside just wreaks havoc on my filming here. And I don't need the crane anymore for a little while. I can get a lot of this unstacked without the crane. So this is the reaction plate I was talking about a minute ago. And you can see right here, it's cracked all the way across here. See it right across all these portholes right here for the oil. So this definitely is getting changed. I would have changed it anyways, but I mean 100%, it's getting changed now. It's cracked here, cracked here. So this original one is actually cast. It's cast steel. And the new one that replaces it is machine steel. So they actually just took a grade of steel and machined it and made it. Where this one was cast, you can tell by the rough cast edges and the shape. So the new one's just gonna be cylindrical. It won't have the square on the bottom. It's just gonna be completely round here. That's how you know if it's been upgraded or not. So this O-ring already popped out of place just when because it was lifting the reaction plate. So I'll pull these dowels out, lift that plate off, and I'll keep working my way down. All right, so there's the reaction plate. I didn't get very far, and I found a lot more damage. These dowel holes right here are all broken out. Right here, both of these ones. And those dowels are on the other side of this reaction plate, right here. So where that reaction plate dowels in fact, where's that dowel? It's not even there. Maybe it's in this housing. See, they go all the way through, and then they go into this back housing. I don't see it. That dowel is missing. So yeah, it should have been in that hole, and it goes through to all 3 of these housings. I don't know if it popped out of there. I don't think it could have popped out. Oh, here it is. It fell out when I was taking this apart. So that dowel goes right there. But so this housing here is trash too. This housing for, let's see, that would have been 6. This housing for 4 and 5. So finding carnage in here. All right, so I just snuck off to Harbor Freight to pick up a snap ring pliers that I needed. I forgot to grab those out of the service truck. And I came back, and then I jumped right in here to pull the plates and discs from clutch pack number 5 out. And I got the top disc. It looks okay. Got the plate. It's a little burnt, just a tiny bit. But then the next disc down is just about wore out. So I've got to pull the rest of these discs and plates out. We'll see what they look like. So I set the camera down just to be able to slide these off, just to make it easier. And both sides of this disc, let's see, that'll go like that. And the next disc is worn out, and then the back side of it isn't. So, well, it doesn't matter how those are stacked. They're gonna get changed anyways. I kind of lost track of how I was stacking those. And then pick up this plate, and we'll have to check out this plate as well. So pack number 5's got to be, needs to be rebuilt. Pack number 5 runs on the back of this cracked reaction plate, and then it's also contained inside this manifold housing that's broken. That was broken by the dowels from the reaction plate. So now I've got to pull this shaft out. We'll pull this planetary group out, and then we'll be able to pull this housing off, this cracked manifold housing, and then we'll keep working our way down. So as many of these transmissions that I've done this same stupid thing a dozen times. I forgot to have to pull clutch number 2 off, which is on the bottom, off of the shaft before I can proceed any farther. I can't tell you how many times I've done this, but it's been probably 5 years since I've rebuilt one of these. I think 5 years. I've done a ton of them, but I haven't done any in a while. So I've got to get the crane hooked up to this so I can flip it over and get that number 2 clutch pack off, and then I can set it back down like this. Then I can pull this shaft out and then remove the next planetary housing. All right, so what I've done so I can lift this back up, I got this 6-inch long spacer. That's about 5.5 inches or so. And then I got one of the housing bolts, and I bolted the link bracket to it with this spacer. And that should make it rigid enough so I can just hook up onto this, pick it up and flip it on its side, and then I can, get the number 2 clutch unit off, and then I can try to fumble it back down onto its, you know, back in the position it's in right now. There we go. Alright, so here's what we're looking at. So this is the number 2 clutch unit here. It's like a rotating one, and it's just got this metal snap ring right here. It's like a little wire one, and then this wear washer, and then this thing's going to slide off the shaft. There we go. So slide that off. So it's just a round, those round O-rings, or snap rings. Then you got a little fiber washer. And this should just slide off, but the way this transmission's going, probably won't. Something's going on with this thing. It is not cooperating. I may have to disassemble it on here just to get it to come off. Something's might be coming apart inside there. All right, well, I'll keep you guys here on this camera, the front row view. This is absolutely not the normal way to do this. Tear more stuff up. Let's see if I can get one of my new pry bars in here. Something gave way there. Okay, just got that off the dowel. Let's rotate it around. There we go. Alright, so this is totally de-lambed in here. This is clutch number 2. So clutch number 2 is gone, clutch number 5's gone. So let's lay these over here. Let's collect all these dowels. Let's see what's wrong with this. This might be broken. This shaft, particular shaft right here, they've had problems. There was an older style one that's thinner, and they had problems with them breaking. So they did an update where they came up with a whole new housing that it slides into, like a new the carrier behind there, and then also a new unit here. And the newer ones are thicker, but instead of breaking at the spline, they break in the middle, and they make a freaking mess in here. They destroy thousands of dollars worth of parts. The last training that I did for myself, I had to have that repaired, and I couldn't get the parts from CAT, and so I had to repair the housing that this slides into. And I had an old one on the shelf here. In fact, I have one more. It's sitting right over there on the shelf of the old style. So I had to repair the old style housing to go with it because I couldn't get the new style housing. CAT didn't have them in stock. This was during 2020, I believe, if I remember right. So it was really hard to get parts. But this is really fighting me here. I think that this is something really screwed up in here, and that's what might have caused the clutches to burn out, actually, because if this broke, it might have been putting all kinds of weird pressures and forces in there that would cause us to ride against the clutches when they shouldn't have been. Yeah, I can pull that shaft out from the backside. I'm going to do that so I can see better in here. Let me wipe my hands, bring the camera over to the other side and show you the shaft I was trying to get out originally by just removing this clutch unit. So I can pull this shaft out. It's got this double gear on here. Get this out. We'll see if there's any damage to it. See, something was rubbing on it there. This is the end we had. That's that snap ring groove, or the snap ring I was just taking off. So we can lay this over here. It's going to put my parts a little bit out of sequence, but it's not a big deal on this particular transmission. I'll be able to figure it out. I got to reassemble it. Now you could hear something broken inside there. Something's really screwing up. So I may have to just flip it back over now. I can continue unstacking from over there, and then when I get to here, hopefully I'll have found the problem before I flip this back over, and I'll be able to get this thing, get these parts off. So let's go out here and start the compressor, or I'm sorry, start the log splitter. This is where I get the hydraulics for my crane. I just plugged it into my log splitter. All right, get some of these stuff out of the way. I'm gonna drop a little bit on us here, but might not be a bad thing. It might jar loose whatever is frozen. That didn't drop. All right, so we got that back on the ground. So now I can start pulling this stuff apart, and we'll see what else we can find wrong in this thing. All right, so I just lifted off the number 5 carrier. And when I was talking earlier about that shaft that's stuck inside there, about a carrier that has to be changed with it, this is the carrier. And usually when that shaft breaks, the new style one, it'll, well, I guess either style, it blows out the snap ring and it'll ruin this carrier. And on the last one, I had to repair this because I couldn't get it. And it's been running for a long time now. One day when that training comes in, I'm gonna be surprised to see if the epoxy I used on it is still holding, or if this ring has just been dangling on that shaft for 5 years or whatever. So anyways, I just wanted to show you guys what's going on with that. So next on here, I talked to you guys about the hidden screws. Allen screws, there's one right here, and there's one right down in this hole. I have to pull those out to be able to get this manifold off. And see, those were full of oil before I flipped this over. So flipping it over kind of helps, I guess, so you can see it. I'm looking in here right now, and this piston's got a lot of wear on it too. It's kind of weird to see a piston with wear on it like that. All right, so I just dove in here to pull all these Allen screws out. It takes a number 6 metric Allen to get this out and this out. And once you pull those out, this kind of springs up. You'll see the gap there. The springs under for the number 3 pack lift up on it. And then that relieves the tension on these retainers here. So I pulled these screws out for these retainers so I could pull this gear off. Then I could pull this housing out. Well, I looked right in there, and here's the end of that shaft. So this is what's holding us from taking that out. See how that's all, you see how that's all twisted in there? It broke and it's twisted around that gear. So I'm gonna have to get something in there and chip all that out of there to be able to get that gear off of this sun gear off of that shaft. If this is the old style shaft, that's cool, because I've got one sitting right there on the shelf. I hope it is. If not, it's gonna cost him some more money. I've got another tranny sitting outside that I bought for parts. About 8,000 hours on it. It looks like it's been updated just by looking at the outside with that reaction plate. So it's probably gonna have the updated planetary and shaft. Now see, one problem with this is, when I went to buy this that last time, buying this planetary housing, I couldn't get it. I found one in Europe somewhere, but I couldn't get a hold of the guy to buy it. But one thing that sucks is that this gear on it is put on. Once it's put onto it, you can't get it back off. It's got a steel lock ring inside that you slide the whole thing together and it locks in place. So you have to buy this gear and the planetary housing. You can reuse the planet gears, that's it. So hopefully we don't have to upgrade anything. Okay, so there's that broken number 5 manifold. We come down here to pack 4, and I'm looking in here and I'm already seeing damage in here. Probably from the steel that came off the shaft, got in here. So I'm gonna get these springs out of here. We'll lay them right here. Lay everything in a sequence when I take it apart, and that way I can clean it up piece by piece, and then when I go back together, it's just all reverse. That way the springs stay in the right places, the dowels are gonna stay in the right places. It just makes it a lot easier to put it back together. Put these dowels here, and then we'll digging some clutches out of here, out of number 4. All right, so that was like this. So that disc laid there, that plate laid there. I'll just dig a couple of these out on camera just in case we uncover some more carnage. Oh, it looks like this pack survived. All right, so for this number 2 and number 3 manifold, the only benefit of having those lock Allen screws that hold that other manifold on is that it gives you a couple threaded holes to put a link bracket on, because it's pretty heavy. Most of these are about 60 to 80 pounds. This one's like 120, I think. So I keep a set of Allen screws for it, and I just got these new link brackets that are good size, but they're like a 3/8 hole. They're kind of a weird shape. I just got from Cat. And I literally, there's a pile of screws and bolts on the floor right there, and I keep those Allen screws right there. Every one of those little bolts and screws right there have a reason. It's an ADHD thing, I guess. It's just where I store those parts to be able to lift parts, you know, for my lifting tools. So I'm just gonna lift this off with the crane just because it's a little too much for my back. Get in there, pop it up with the screwdriver. So we'll get this off, and that'll be the last housing that comes off of this unit, you know, the main housing here, the main body. And then I'll be able to get in there and see what I can do. We'll see how that number 3 pack looks. Or actually, I call this the, I don't know, this is the 3 and 4 pack. Yeah, because here's a solenoid for pack 1, here's a solenoid for pack 2, here's a solenoid for 3 and 4. So this is the housing for 3 and 4, and that's pack 3 right there. So let me get this this manifold set down, and then we can dig into that and see how number 3 looks, and let's see if we can get the rest of that number 2 apart. And once we get that apart, then I think before I pull the torque converter apart, I'm going to go look for some parts for this, check on that shaft and see if I have the right shaft for it. And if I do, then I can continue and go ahead and pull the torque converter apart. So it depends how far I get on this before this weekend, whether I do a video on just the transmission, then I do a video on the torque converter, and then I'll do a third video on reinstalling everything. So I'm not sure yet. I guess we'll just kind of see how this goes. Let's get this crane swung out of the way. All right, so I got the number 3 discs and plates out of here. Pretty good shape. Does look like this stuff may have gotten a little hot at one point, but it doesn't look that bad, except there's a little bit of debris. Digging some little steel bits out of here, and the very top disc had a little scarring and a little bit of steel debris in it. Nothing we can't take care of on that. So now here's where that shaft is. I'm going to get a chisel, and I usually don't wear safety glasses, but I'm going to on this because that thing is hard, and I'm going to be busting these pieces off, and then I can get them out of the sun gear. If I get them out of the sun gear, I can get this planetary unit out of here so I can inspect it. I can get number 2 all the way out so I can see what the part number is on that shaft, to see if I've got the right shaft. I was able to get that carrier off. I got that carrier off. I got this disc ring off. And what I did, I couldn't find any safety glasses, so I just put a rag over it. I started chipping on this with a chisel, and it bent over enough and the shaft just dropped right down. So now I can, this manifold's gonna come off later. That's not an issue with me yet. I gotta wait till I get parts and everything figured out on this. But I can go ahead and flip this main unit over. We'll get this out so I can see what's going on with that number 2 shaft. All right, so I dug out the spare shaft that I have on my shelf. You can see it's been sitting there for a while. It's just the oil that was on it just got dirt packed to it. But here's the part number. It's 132, or I'm sorry, 150 3282, and this is the correct one. So this is, in my opinion, it's a better one, but he got lucky because I'll be able to just sell him this part, and then we'll go through here, evaluate what else we need. That housing, I got to look and see about that. If I can find a used one real quick and simple, I will, so I don't have to pull mine apart. But if not, I'll pull my tranny apart to get that housing. And then I just have the number 1 to take apart. I'll pop that apart real quick. If I find something in there that's interesting, I will pick this camera back up and show you guys. It's kind of funny because they're really small discs, and when you're like in the higher gears, you're on those tiny little discs. So the way this tranny works, it's an 8-speed transmission. It's got 6 clutch packs, and at any given time you have 2 clutch packs engaged. And if you look at the parts book or on the service manual, it'll show you a list, like whatever gear you're in, which clutch packs are engaged. And it's very simple actually, and these solenoids activate a clutch pack. So you've got 6 of these solenoids that activate clutch packs. You've got 1 that activates a lockup clutch in the transmission. That's all you got for valving besides your pressure relief and that stuff. And it's simple. The computer sees the engine speed, it sees the torque converter output speed, it sees the ground speed, it sees your throttle, it knows what you want to do. So it'll just, you know, as it needs to shift, it'll just disengage those packs, engage the next 2 packs, disengage those, engage the next 2 packs, and it just goes through. It's a really simple, good idea, because we've seen transmissions like these 740 ones, they got a very complicated valve system in there. It's the same setup. You get 2 packs that engage for every gear. I think you have 7 speeds, and 7 speeds in this one, and I think you have 7 packs. I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. But it's a very complicated valve system, and it's totally computer controlled as well. But it's just different, you know. This one here, even though this transmission's a real turd box, the way it shifts and stuff, I love it. It's so simple and it's easy to diagnose. If you lose 6th gear, you can look and see why. Well, you kind of guess which clutch pack is bad because only 2 clutch packs are going to be involved in that. And if it's one of the clutch packs that doesn't get used until you get to 6th, then you know it's got to be in that clutch pack. Doesn't help you a lot as far as you still have to pull the trans and rebuild it, but it can help in diagnosing anyways, because very rarely one of these valves might go bad, or you could have a wire going bad too for it. So it can help you in diagnosing because it's that simple. But anyways, I'm just going to do this video. I'm going to end it here unless I find something at number 1. I will throw a little footage of number 1, but I'm going to end it here. I'm going to do this video on just disassembling the planetary unit. I'm going to do a separate video on taking the torque converter apart, and then I'll do one video on putting all of it back together. So thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate you guys watching my channel. I appreciate all the comments I get. I get people messaging me, for help diagnosing stuff. I'm fine helping you guys out. I really don't mind. I like helping people. And so anyways, thanks for watching. Hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and please share my videos with a friend. And I just thank you guys and have a good day.